Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm gamesplaining Jinja. So this is the game of Jinja, set up for 2 players. It plays up to 5. The only difference with the player count is that some of these spaces are available and they've got the player count on them for when they are available. And if you're playing a 5-player game, you'll only have 5 of these cards rather than 6. At the very start of the game, you will get dealt 5 of these cards, which have kind of what you're working towards on them. You will choose 3 that you wish to work towards and hang on to them, discard the rest. You will get dealt 5 of these cards, and in a 7 Wonders style draft, you will draft one of the cards, pass that deck on to the next person, they'll draft a card, etc. until you have 6 cards that you have drafted. The other thing that changes is the amount of goods and money that each player starts with. In fact, it's 2 goods and 2 money for the most part, but sometimes in the higher play count games, the 3rd and 4th player may have 3 goods, and there will be a few players who have that token. There's a chart in the rulebook that shows what each player count and what each player gets within that player count. And that chart also shows a different number of meeples. So in a 2-player game, we've got 5. In a 3-player game, you'll be playing with 4 of them. In a 4 or 5-player game, you're playing with only 3 of them. And this is an action selection game. So each of these round circles on the board is one spot that can be selected for an action by you placing your meeple onto that spot. The very first thing that will happen on a round is you'll place a marker onto each of the locations. If there is a marker on there, that doesn't matter. That means there'll be 2 or 3 markers on that location. It's not a drama to have more than one. In fact, as a player, that's a good thing to pick one up, and I'll talk about that why that is in a moment. The next thing that happens is the first card of these ones gets flipped over. That is something that's going to happen throughout this round. It will either happen straight away or it will be something that's available to happen through the round. And this is how we track how long the game is. Once you've played the 5th card, so the 5th round of the game is over. So what this card is saying is add 1 random structure to each territory, which literally looks like grabbing tokens out of the bag and throwing a second structure into each territory. Then we come to the worker placement. So let's talk through the spots. I'll go through these ones to start with. The way you select the spot is by putting your meeple onto the spot. That is now no longer available, but bear in mind you may use one of these markers to be able to, in a future turn, use the same spot as someone else if you wish to use it. But once that's used, it's used. You only have 1 of them from the start of the game to use at some point if you're further around in the player count order. So the first one is to discard one of these cards, and you discard it onto that pile. To take 3, where the question mark is, means we're pulling blind. So 3 tokens from the bag, and then every other player gets to take 1 token for you doing that. The next spot down is the deed buyback. So you're going to spend 2 money. These are the money. You take one of the deeds out of this stack, and you can take any of them. They're all available to you, which is why they're face up. So for example, you might have grabbed this one, and then the card that you have drafted, you are allowed to build this straight away if you have the appropriate goods. And I'll talk about this building in a moment, but this is looking for those 2, one of that and one of that, which he has all the pieces for that to happen. So he spends them back into the bag and builds that, which looks like taking one of his buildings and putting it onto the green space. That piece then goes face up in front of him, and we'll see why in a moment. Okay, the next one down is taking 2 of these cards, adding them to your hand. So you've now got 5 cards in your hand, and then you select 1 card to not have in your hand. He no longer has a card to be able to build this one, so it's probably worth getting rid of that one. And that's telling him what he is able to, or what he should be trying to do to get 6 points at the end of the game, which is 1 of each different sized shrine. And he already has a small one, so he might hang on to them and get rid of that one. This one is to gain the pieces of a territory. So if a player had, for example, done that, and he really wished to get those two pieces or those two buildings from that territory, so he couldn't do that action because the spot's been taken. I'll talk about what that means in a moment. He's able to place his marker here and take those two goods. Moving down is the territory building, so he can spend 1 money to build one of these, assuming he has the right houses. So say, for example, he wished to build in the yellow spot, and let's imagine he had all the appropriate stuff. He could spend the 1 money to be able to spend all of those pieces back into the bag to build on one of that area. Moving on, change lanterns. So what he does on the change lanterns is he will flip 2 of these lanterns over. So he might flip this one and this one, so where he's currently at. And what happens is this one gives him 1 extra money and a good from the bag. This one just gives him a good from bag. So what he's going to do is he will take that one, which brings in a money and a random good from the bag, or random building from the bag, if you will. I am going to use incorrect language for a lot of the stuff in this game, by the way. But he's basically taken all the stuff that is showing on the back of that particular lantern. Moving on. The next spot, he can spend 2 money. So let's say he spends the 2 money again to roll the dice. So wherever you have these symbols, we're looking at rolling the dice. Now, if the dice is red, he gets what's on that side. If the dice showed a blue icon, he would get what's on this side. So he got 5 points straight away. Because there's the star in the die, which only happens on a couple of the sides, that allows him to also flip over one of the lamps. So he could flip that one over. The reason you may wish to flip a lantern over is if you had a building in an area, you really want to be on the red side of the lantern, not the blue, because that gives a better bonus. Or if this is what it looks like, he may use that bonus to flip that lantern back over so the other player doesn't get as good a thing out of it. Moving on, here he can just spend 4 money. So there's 4 money. He can spend the 4 money to take 6 points. That's a really easy one. Up here, he can spend as much money as he likes to be able to take goods. So it's 2 money per good. If he has 8 money to spend, he can spend that 8 money to take 4 goods out of the bag. Now there's no question mark on the bag, which means he gets to actually look through the bag and go, oh, I want that one and those 2, for example. So he gets to actually select. It was 2 money per good. There is a maximum of 5 goods you're able to take out of the bag on that action. The other thing you're able to do is if you have a marker that you don't wish to have, when you do that action, you can also sell that back into the bag for 1 money. Now in this next spot, once again, we're rolling the die for either 2 things out of the bag or that is blind. So if you got the blue one, you would take 2 out of the bag without looking at what you're taking. Because he rolled the red one, he gets to take 1 out of the bag, but he gets to actually look at what he's getting. So he might take that one. If you're playing a 5-player game, there are 2 of them available. On a up to 4-player game, it is not available. If you're playing a 4 or 5-player game, this spot is available. On a small account game, it's not. And what this is, you can spend a money to take 2 random pieces out of the bag. On a 3 to 5-player game, this is available. On a smaller player count game, this is not available. At the beginning of the round, so when you flipped over one of these cards, before anyone's placed anything, you would put 2 gold in that spot if it was empty. If that's what it looked like at the beginning of the round, you would just add 1 more gold to that. So by going here, you get to take all the gold out of that space. Here, you get to roll for gold. So once again, you're rolling this die. If it comes up on the blue side, you're getting 2 money. If it comes up on the red side, you're getting 3 money. And same deal with that triangle, by the way, on every one of these things where you roll the die. If that triangle comes up, you're going to flip a token over. Okay, that's this part of the board. The next thing that you can do is on these locations. So if you take a location, you have two choices. You can either take all the goods off that location or build. So in order to build, he would need to have the shrine for the location, which is this one. He would also need to have the goods to be able to build it. He doesn't currently have the goods. He is one of these short, which means by going there, he would take those 2 tokens. Yeah. He may, however, choose to go here to take those 2 tokens in one turn. And then on his next turn round, assuming it's still available, go there to play this card now that he has all of the tokens necessary. So they're all there. They go back in the bag. This gets built and he puts one of his shrines on one of the circles. And that's kind of the 2 options. Once there's a guy there, obviously you can't take that, which is why this comes into play. So if someone else, or even himself, wished to pick up those 2 archers, or wish to build on that territory, they'll need to use up here instead. At the end of the round, or the end of the season, they call it, you're going to remove this. They say flip it face down. I just remove it from the game. Then you return your workers. So all of the workers from every player comes back to them. Then we activate the lanterns. So with this setup, he's going to get 1 money and 1 good. The money, and he takes a good. He gets 1 money. And for this one, he gets 1 good. Bear in mind, if you have 2 buildings in a location, you would action that twice. And all players at the table will do that. Then in player order, you action your buildings in any order that you like. So this one is gain 1 money, which he will do. This one is gain 2 money. So he doesn't have to do anything to be able to gain the 2 money. Then pay 2 money to use the Yomikiji activity. I don't say those words well. I'm sure that I've mispronounced that. I do apologize for anyone who actually speaks Japanese and understands how to say words. I apologize. I'm Australian and don't do other languages so good. So please forgive. So I've got to assume that means pay 2 money. He has this one already, so he can gain the 3 points from it. I'm assuming that's the case. 1, 2, 3. And then put that back. So he'll gain those points again next round and the round after. I'm assuming that is the case. There's no clarification within the rulebook as to the definitions of a couple of things. So I've got to use best knowledge for myself and for anyone else. So use your best understanding of what you're looking at for those kinds of rules. So once all players have done their building actions, we will then pass the first player marker, which I don't think I've actually included, which is this marker. So blue will become the first player. You pass it to your left, and we continue on with the next setup and next section of the game. If this was the 5th round, so we've just finished the 5th of these cards, we would then go to final scoring. For every set of 5 resources, each money is counted as 1 resource. So there's 1 set of 5, there's a second set of 5, and those 2 don't make up a 5. So that's worth an extra 4 points. So it's 2 points per set of 5. Any of these markers that are unused, remember you could have used them to be able to use one of these locations that's already been used. But if it's unused, that player gets 3 points for it. Then we look at these points for all the buildings that have been built. Anything that's left in your hand does not count. So he would get another 13 points. Then we go to these cards. Any of them that have been fulfilled, you get the points in the top marker. So he got the Kanto one. There'll be another 3 points. This one's for each blue lantern in territories where you control no shrines. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll get 2 points. So it's another 8 points to him. And these 2 haven't yet been fulfilled within what we're doing. Then you're looking at each section of the board. So there are 3 sections. It's split up by this little black marker and here. And you're looking at who has the most shrines in each area. So in here, green has the most shrines. There's only 1 there. There's none there. There's 1 there. So that gives him another 8 points. And down here we've got 3 against 1, which again is another 8 points. If there is a tie for how many are in a section, you split the points available. So if there's 2, like in this case, both players would get 4 points. If there were 3, each would get 9 points, so we round up. And that, my friends, is the game. There's not a whole bunch to it, but there's a lot of thinking going on. So please go ahead and watch my gameplay to get a feel for how the game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be gamesplained, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games that I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.